As I've mentioned in a few of our recent videos, we're trying to reach 100,000 subscribers before the UK is set to leave the EU at the end of March. We're doing pretty well, but we want to be able to beat the UK. Make sure you subscribe, and if you already have, click the bell icon to make sure you stay up to date with our latest videos. In this video, we're going to be talking about World Trade Organization Article 24. Now, this particular piece of legislation was relatively unheard of until recently, and you'd be completely forgiven for not knowing what's in it. It's only the last couple of weeks that it's been brought to the public's attention by certain politicians. Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage have mentioned it in some of their recent interviews, and Conservative MP Owen Paterson actually asked Theresa May about it in Parliament. This has prompted headlines in newspapers, such as the Daily Express, who described the article as a secret weapon which could allow the UK to continue to trade tariff and quota-free with the EU for 10 years in the event of a no-deal Brexit. So let's take a look at the article in question. Does it really do all it promises? As I mentioned up front, the article that people are referring to is Article 24 of the General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs, or GATT. GATT was drawn up years before the World Trade Organization was even founded, originating in 1948, when it was supposed to form the basis of the International Trade Organization, or ITO. When the ITO collapsed, GATT became the basis of the then new World Trade Organization, formed on January 1st, 1995. Today, the WTO's regulations are composed of a whole load of different agreements, each of which have their own Article 24s. So calling it WTO Article 24 isn't strictly correct. Wow, that sounded pretty nerdy. But you did click on a video about the World Trade Organization's Article 24, so you can hardly blame all of that nerdiness on me. WTO rules state that if your country doesn't have a trade deal with another nation, then you have to use the same tariffs you use with every other country you don't have a deal with. After a no-deal Brexit, the UK will obviously not have a deal in place with the EU. So trade must be conducted using the same tariffs the UK applies to every other country they don't have a deal with. Ordinarily, if the UK and EU were to trade tariff-free, every other country the UK doesn't have a deal with would also get tariff-free access to the UK's economy. However, according to Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage, Article 24 would allow us to continue trading goods with only the EU without tariffs or quotas for up to 10 years after a no-deal Brexit. In this time, we could agree a free trade deal, which could come into effect once the article has expired. Just to qualify, this isn't some kind of Remainer attack on Nigel Farage or Jacob Rees-Mogg. They've just been vocal proponents of the idea, and they seem to understand the article in the same way. In fact, for complete transparency, if you'd like to read the article yourself, you can head over to tldrnews.co.uk/article 24, or there's a link in the description. Anyway, let's see if this is the silver bullet that some seem to think it is. According to paragraph 5 of GATT Article 24, it's supposed to be used as an interim agreement, for when two countries are sorting out the last bits of a free trade deal or customs union. The key word here is agreement. This article can obviously not be triggered unilaterally. It needs to be agreed to by both the UK and EU. Now this should sound a bit weird to you. It would mean the UK and EU agreeing to a deal straight after a no-deal Brexit. Both the UK and EU would have to present a plan to the WTO, explaining why they're asking for this interim agreement, and what sort of agreement they want to end up with once the time elapses. Again, this requires the UK and EU agreeing to what sort of future relationship they wanted to have, making a deal straight after a no-deal Brexit. If they couldn't agree to the deal in the 2 years after Article 50 was triggered, then why would they all of a sudden agree to a deal straight after March 29th? But even if they did, according to paragraph 7, any proposal is subject to recommendations from all 164 WTO members, and the EU and UK have to agree to those recommendations if they enter into an interim agreement. This effectively gives all WTO members a veto over any agreement, which might explain why the article has never been triggered since the WTO's creation in 1995. It also doesn't solve the Irish border question. There's a confusing provision with way too many negatives in paragraph 3, which states that the provisions of this agreement shall not be construed to prevent advantages accorded by any contracting party to adjacent countries in order to facilitate frontier traffic. To be honest, I've read over that so many times and I'm still not exactly sure what it's trying to say. But according to Laurent Bartels, an expert in WTO law at the University of Cambridge, It doesn't help at all with the Irish border. I know that's a bit of a useless explanation, but we thought it's probably best, given that no one at TLDR is actually a lawyer, to just trust an expert opinion and not try and interpret a complicated and confusing bit of legalese ourselves. That is, unless you've had enough of experts already. So this supposed secret weapon could be vetoed by any one of 164 member nations, relies on the UK and EU agreeing to a future relationship, and doesn't help with one of Brexit's core issues. That doesn't exactly sound like the most powerful secret weapon to me. To stay up to date with all of TLDR's latest videos, make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you're updated every time we post a video. Also, make sure to follow us across all the social networks you can think of simply by searching TLDR News.